The engine is starting up. 3, 2, 1.
Is there anyone here that would like to communicate with us?
Putting a dip in your hip, a glide in your stride. Welcome to the mothership, the home of the travelers of the universe, with shows throughout the week. Everything you want, everything you could need. From the paranormal to the supernatural, from the spiritual to the unknown, from emotions to comedy. You can find us at Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and so much more. This is R.I.F.T Nation Network, the RNN. And now, your featured show. Shall we begin?
Sensitive/offensive content disclaimer. Please note that this podcast may contain material that some listeners may find sensitive, offensive, or disturbing. We strive to create respectful and informative content, but topics discussed may include mature themes such as violence, explicit language, or controversial subjects, triggering content including discussions related to mental health, trauma, or other sensitive issues, explicit language. Occasionally, our guests or hosts may use strong language. While we aim to handle these topics with care and empathy, we encourage listeners to exercise discretion. If you find any content distressing, consider skipping or seeking support. Remember that this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. If you need assistance, please consult a qualified expert.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the R.I.F.T Nation Network. I am your host, Joni Skinner. You are tuned in to Mysteries Beyond the Scenes, where we not only do missing persons, cold case mysteries. Tonight, this is such a special, this is probably the coolest event chart I have ever done, because I thought, you know what? We are in historic astrological times right now. The United States has just completed its Pluto return every 240 some odd years. So I thought, this is such a cool chart. I did this last summer for, many of you all know, Kim Sage, because she was putting on an event out at Belle Grove Plantation. So, you know, I've talked about this so many times that astrologers are historians. We do not predict. We look at past patterns. Astrology through the centuries, actually centuries, thousands of years, has been so well documented. We look at patterns. So we're historians. So when I did this chart, I'm excited to show you this. But this is one of probably the most premier plantations in Virginia, still in her beauty and glory. She's been, and if you do any of the history, and look into Belle Grove. She is just about what she looked like back in the 1700s. So this is really a cool story, and it's a mystery. There's still a mystery element to that. So come on in, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to share, like, subscribe. We are coming live to you all on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So, and just send out some prayers to Miss Lee, who is with us every Wednesday. Tammy has informed us that she doesn't literally just messaged everyone and said, I'm in the ER. Don't forget, it's Joni's show tonight. Oh my goodness. Find out, Tammy. Send her our prayers. Let us know that she's okay. We love Lee. So, Lee, get better soon, honey. I hope you're doing all right. And hello, Miss Michelle. Good evening, travelers and those alike. Thank you for participating. Please like, subscribe, and share from Mr. Howie Odell. And I owe you. I laughed about this all day yesterday, Michelle. And Miss Peggy down in New Orleans, when last week, or 2 shows ago, I'm so sorry, Michelle. I said, I'm sending all this snow down to you guys. And whoops. I laughed in the car and I thought, Michelle is probably cussing me out right now because we really laughed about this. I hope you're enjoying the snow down on the Gulf, Michelle. And I know Peggy down in New Orleans. What did you guys get? Like 8, 9 inches or something? Pensacola Beach got like 10 inches of snow. Whoops. I promise. I will never say that again. Oh, that's so funny. She's probably watching, knowing her. She probably is. Hi, Lee. If you're here, let us know what's going on. So there's Miss Michelle. Oh my. Take care. Hi, Miss Denise. How are you, my dear? Howie's got some info. I just wanted to put this out there. There are 2 plantations of the same name from the same family. One, of course, is on the eastern side. The other one is in northwestern. And for those of you who do not know this, Howie is a native Virginian. So he can chime in and give us some more history too, as he knows it with Belle Grove, because I've always had a fascination with plantations ever since I was little. I love them. I just think they're beautiful and just absolutely beautiful. And yes, ma'am, and they actually are part of the same family. You may hear about it tonight. Perfect. And Tammy says, wow, Howie, 2 with the same name. Beautiful. And I hope Peggy drops in because, Peggy is down in New Orleans. And New Orleans also has a Belle Grove. And, they're just wonderful. And I think, when people have these beautiful, beautiful old historic plantations and they drive by them or they visit them, they realize how beautiful they are. But if they're not in your area, they are such a historic treasure. They're just lovely. Now, like in our area, what we have, which is super interesting. And actually, when I was a little girl, they had just stopped doing the tours, the school tours in them because they were starting to cave in. But because I am in northern Kentucky and Ohio is right across the river, the Ohio River was, where the slaves would cross from the south. The Underground Railroad was here in my area. So Cincinnati has a beautiful museum, Underground Railroad. But there is a city on the river called Newport, Kentucky. And Newport, Kentucky, all of the funeral homes had the Underground Railroads in them. That's where they were. They were in all the funeral homes. So they were, we could go in them when I was a kid, and you could tour them where the tunnels led down to the Ohio River, and they would swim across the river to freedom. And so, I mean, it's so interesting when you realize you have that history in your area. It's just to be so treasured, so treasured. I know. Michelle says, come and get the snow. I heard the snow was there in New Orleans and in Florida. Oh, Denise, they got inches and inches. They didn't only get 1 or 2 inches. They got 8 to 10. I don't know how many Michelle has. Thanks, Jenny. Did not want this crap. Kathy did. I'm sorry. We did. We laughed about this 2 weeks ago because we just had a foot of snow. So I feel you. I know what you're going through. But I'm sure, Michelle, the kids, oh my goodness, the kids had to have had a blast. I'll bet the kids had a ball with all that snow. We got a foot of snow. I can't remember. It's been about 3 weeks ago. It was 12 inches. Then we got more on top of it. Another, I don't know. It's still there. Some of it has melted a little, but we still have a ton of snow out there. Now what we're dealing with now is the minus 15. So our friends in Canada, Miss Denise, you all can please come and take your please take your snow back, Miss Denise. We're done with it. We're done. We're done with snow. We're done with the freezing cold. It got down to like minus 10 last night. And when it gets that cold, and Michelle, and you guys might want to think about this, and you too, Tammy, when it gets cold, you put your faucets on to drip, and you open up all your like bottom cabinet drawers and drawers in your kitchen where all your exposed pipes are, so the pipes don't freeze. So I know that's just a little tidbit of information that we do here. I've been doing it all week. It's pretty. Took a picture of an agave ant with snow on it. There were plenty of pictures with all the palm trees too. Oh, this cold, it's bitter. It's absolutely bitter. Yeah, Denise, take it back. Agave plant. That's hilarious. When it gets to the cold where you have gloves on, and of course you got to dress in layers, but when you have gloves on and you're driving and your hands they hurt. They're not like numb or anything. They just ache because it's so freaking cold. I'm done. So let's just think about warm weather. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Here's Howie. Before you get started, would you look? Sure. Howie's going to give us a little history about the area of Belle Grove. Oh, yes. Or mine would have burst. It's 26 degrees. Yes. Drip that water, Tammy, and open up every single cabinet that you've got where their pipes are. In the bathroom, in the kitchen, everywhere. Lord, good luck. 26. I don't worry about the pipes till about 10 below, 5 below. So Howie's going to give us some information. Okay. So I'm going to pull up notes too. This is a neat, I'll give you a little background of why Kim had me do this. Well, Howie's going to give us some info. Kim was putting on a presentation at Belle Grove. As you all know, Kim and Miss Rhonda, Kim is a medium, and they do investigations, spirit investigations, because there are many, many sightings of soldiers at Belle Grove, children at Belle Grove, all kinds of spirit encounters at Belle Grove. So Kim said, is there any way and Rhonda did too. She said, there's this one spirit that we encounter. He's very nasty and he's very mean. And his name is Baldwin. And he was an overseer. Well, an overseer was somebody that was in charge of the enslaved people or the slaves. And his name was Baldwin Lee. They knew he had committed unaliving to himself at Belle Grove. But that's pretty much all they knew. He was nasty. He would cuss at them on their little machines. He was a nasty, mean spirit. So when I was working on his chart, I did the background on him and I found his obituary. I found out what happened to him. I did the event chart on the day of his unaliving. Wait until you see it. And what's funny is when I was doing it, I was home alone. All of a sudden, the cabinets where my washer and dryer are swung open. I said, listen here, Mr. Virginia, Mr. Baldwin, you get your little ASS back up to Virginia where you belong because your spirit is not going to hang out here. Now, I'm doing your chart, but you need to get out. It did. That did happen. That's a true story. So that's funny. Okay, let's get Howie's info. Okay, here we go. Oh, whoops. Here we go. Okay, here's Howie. Okay. Oh, okay. Belle Grove Plantation being the birthplace of James Madison in the line going down the coastline. Location known as the Isle of Generals. Okay, there we go. Heading into what we call Westmoreland County. First, you encounter the birthplace of George Washington. This is where he was born and spent his youth before they moved to the next location. Going into the location of Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is up in Northern Virginia. Now, the next you'll run into is what they call Stratford Hall. This is another center in Plantation that's deep, rich, and southern. This was the birthplace of Robert E. Lee, which is only 1.5 miles to 2 miles away from the birthplace of George Washington. I love this history. Here's the interesting part. Robert E. Lee is actually, through marriage, related to George Washington, George Washington's granddaughter. Intriguing. Robert E. Lee is supposed to have been one of the most brilliant generals ever. George Washington is actually the person who gave Robert E. Lee the home that him and his wife would move into that is now known as what cemetery? Arlington Cemetery. I did not know that. My home county. And Miss Lois Clark graduated from Washington and Lee High School. I was just saying, Lois, too, what a beautiful and just so rich in history area that you all live in. I mean, treasure that area because it's a jewel. You know, it's just a jewel to be so blessed to be there. You know, my grandson is coming up to DC. He's going on a trip in DC in the spring for their field trip for school. So I'm sure they're going to see so much. And Linda said, thank you, Howie. Just fascinating. It is fascinating. Now, I love this picture of Belle Grove. Look at that. Now this is Belle Grove was a land grant in 1667. Okay. And in 1732, Major Height settled in the Shenandoah Valley, and the major married the sister of President James Madison. There you go, Howie, of James Madison. The house was built in 1794 to 1797 from the limestone on the land. The Major Height expanded it by 7,500 acres, and it was purely agricultural, mainly with tobacco. They had a sawmill, outbuildings, ice house, and from 1783 to 1851, they had 270 slaves on the property. And a Union general used the house as headquarters during the Civil War. So I imagine that would explain why the spirit investigators see a lot of soldiers there, a lot of Civil War soldiers. Now, the period that we are interested in is called the Turner, because the home, changed a lot of hands. And it did go into disarray at a point where it is now back to its glory. She's just magnificent. But the Turner family is where we find Baldwin Lee. He was the overseer that lived at an outbuilding on the plantation. Okay. This is the not so friendly spirit. And actually, after I did this chart and Kim did the presentation, Rhonda went up there and went into the overseer house. And she said they have never experienced this. There was a baby copperhead in the overseer's house. I said, well, that wasn't very nice, Baldwin Lee. That was pretty mean, because even a baby copperhead is nasty. So there's some more pictures. There's some more beautiful pictures of Belle Grove. And there is the inside. I'm going to make it bigger so you guys can, let's make it bigger so y'all can see it. Okay, there we go. So and you can also, for those that are interested in this area, you can stay there. They have the sleeping rooms are like, I don't think you call it a bed and breakfast, but you can spend the night there, where they have fixed up these beautiful, look at that, beautiful rooms. Look at that. And there is the farm. This is one of the buildings, outbuildings. This is the slave quarters. Okay. Inside of the quarters, it's just fascinating. Look at that fireplace. Now, here are some of the items from Belle Grove. And I'll take a picture of it and post it. I've got a spinning wheel that is identical to that was brought over the Appalachian Mountains. And it's been handed down to our family. And actually, I've got it under right next to a beautiful antique desk. So I've got a spinning wheel that is identical to that. I've got the story on it and everything. It was from the 1700s. So that's how I know it's identical. It's identical to that spinning wheel. So here are some of the artifacts from Belle Grove. Oh, that was the kitchen. Yes. Howie said that was the kitchen. Look at that. Look at that fireplace. Okay, here we go. There's some artifacts. Okay, here is this is our, I know, it's just, here's how he says, Baldwin is said to be a dark-skinned man, no relation to Robert E. Lee. Not sure. Yeah. So let's get, okay, so that was our There's our artifacts. Okay, here's Baldwin Lee. He was born in 1820, King George County, Virginia. His death was November of 1868, 47 to 48 years old, King George County, Virginia. He is buried in the Lee Family Cemetery in King George County, Virginia. He had 5 children. He was married on Christmas Eve. He was born in 1820. So he was not an old man when he passed away, unalived himself. So the girls were curious if the event chart would give us an idea. His obituary said in the earlier part of the day, because if you recall, obituaries back then would tell the story of the person. And I had the obituary last summer and I looked all over for it. I looked online for it, and now I couldn't find it to post it here to show to you guys, but I'll find it. So that's the family. He had 5 children. His wife died like in 1901. So she lived quite a while. Now, what's interesting about this is, and I found this about him, when you can dig into so much stuff now on the internet. Because he was the overseer during the Turner family occupation of Belle Grove, Turner family. In 1850, he owned 2 slaves, 18 and 8. And then in 1860, 5. Oh, let's see what Howie's saying. You know, it's really interesting to me about this right now. The curator of Belle Grove today is their son's birthday. Small wonders. Oh, that's kind of weird, isn't it? That's a little weird. That's weird. So when I get to Baldwin's chart, I want you to take note of something very interesting. In 1860, there was a slave that was 31 years old, and it was a female. I want you to pay attention to that, because somehow a female shows up in his chart. And, you know, it could be the wife, very well could be the wife, but I don't think so. I didn't think so when I looked at the chart. So I found that fascinating. And in his autopsy, it said he had been dealing with mind issues, but it seemed to have been pulling out of it. Some mental issues. He seemed to have been pulling out of it. Okay. That was in there as well. Happy birthday, Tyler Darnell. Happy birthday, Tyler. Happy Aquarian birthday. So that's interesting. You can look up. And then you can also find interesting information on Find a Grave. Find a Grave. Okay, here's the chart. I'm going to make it really big, because it's really interesting. I think I made it as big as I can make it. Okay, so we're going to look up where we've got Baldwin. He passed away on November 16th, 1868. I put it 8:30 a.m., and that was my guess because I just guessed. And I thought, whatever my intuition tells me, that's what I'm going to use, because we really didn't have anything. So his obituary stated around that time frame. So as you all know, we always look to the first house for the person that were the victim, the first house in an event chart, that would have been Baldwin. So we see that Baldwin is represented by the sign of Sagittarius. The ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter, which shows up in the 5th house. What's the 5th house? The 5th house can be children. It can be love relationship. He did have a child that passed younger, at a younger age. And the moon is his co-ruler. So we know that his physical body represents the ascendant, which is the moon, which is him, that this was right in front of him, whatever was coming. And the body is represented by Saturn, which is also in the 1st house. So let's count down to 4 houses. Chiron in the 4th house would have been injuries to the body at home. This occurred at home. So we're going to flip over to the 5th house. Neptune, mental issues. People, and in the 5th house, those are places that people go to visit, like golf courses. Belle Grove would fall into that category. The zoo, parks, places like that. It's where people love to go to visit. So I would say this occurred at Belle Grove. Okay. Neptune is mental issues. Go up to the 6th house. And you guys have heard me talk repeatedly, time and time again, about algol. Algol is the throat, the head, off with your head. Pluto would be chaos. This is also the house of health. Injury to the neck. Injury to the neck. So we found out that he, okay, let's go up to the 8th house. That's the house of death. Now, in my rulership book, Uranus in the 8th house is unaliving, brought on by yourself. That is a suicide. Pluto in the 12th house, Uranus in the 8th house denotes suicide in an event chart or a crime chart. Cancer is ruling that house, which is highly emotional. Let's see. So then we go next up to the 9th house, which was his subconscious, higher mind. Mars would represent a weapon. He used a razor and a knife and cut his throat. That's how he did it, cut his throat. Mars is with the north node of destiny. This was meant to happen. Apparently, this was destined to occur. Mars is at the fatal degree of 22. It's up at the top chart. It's up at the top of the chart, which would refer to me that he did it out in the open, unfortunately. I mean, it's terrible. Just did it out and just apparently crazy. Uranus is unexpected. Unexpected. It's suicide, 8 in the 8th house. Okay, so what's interesting? Now, this is where we go back to the list. The 11th house, that's people we know. That could be friends. It's associates. It's social groups. Venus is in there. Venus is a female. Venus is in the house of Libra. This is a very beautiful woman. This beautiful woman, and I just put in there, woman involved in his life, because Venus is opposing Chiron. She is opposing everything. She's opposing him, the victim. So was this a fight? The fifth house rules over love affairs. That's why I don't think it was the wife, or she would have showed up in the seventh house. A wife would show up in the seventh house. It's a love affair in the fifth house, and when it commits to marriage and a commitment, it's the seventh house. The fifth house is love relationships, it's children, it's places we enjoy, it's hobbies. Then we're going to go over to the house of the undoing, or karma, things that are hidden, the 12th house. Well, we've got Mercury. Mercury is the house of communications, hidden voices. That would say possibly schizophrenic. He was a schizophrenic. It's completely opposing Algol and Pluto. Mercury is. It just did injury to his body in the house of health. So hidden voices, and the sun is in there. What does the sun denote? It denotes a father, a hidden father, perhaps a hidden father. So I think that the 31-year-old that was on his list, I don't know. I'm just guessing. But it sure shows up in the chart. I have never seen a chart, honestly, hit like this in my entire life. I mean, actually, when I was writing this out on this chart to give to Kim, this is when the doors where my washer and dryer are flung open. So I knew it was right because I was getting visited by a spirit or something. I told him to go back. So you're not welcome here. But needless to say, I think that was probably confirmation. He's very vocal. He's very loud with Kim and with Rhonda. Rhonda said every other word is an F-bomb. And he wants people out. He's not happy. They want to try to help him. I don't know. He wasn't very happy about this chart. Maybe because he knew some secrets were going to come out. I don't know. But I thought this was one of the coolest charts that went back to 1868 I have ever seen in my life, that really tells the story of this man. And everybody there has tried to find information on him and they can't. They haven't been able to find it. So I hope that answered some questions about his life for the people that are there, because it's just interesting. This is hitting on target. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy accurate. Howie said, wow, this is scary. It's hitting on target. Okay, here we go. Howie, I just want people to know that this location sits on the banks of the Rappahannock River. This was a high trading location, so goods were coming and going off this plantation going down the river. Correct. It's beautiful. This is absolutely a beautiful place, and I think if anybody wants to go up to DC and you're going up there to visit and do some sightseeing, I would put Belle Grove Plantation on my list of activities because I would love to go there. Denise, this is one of the coolest charts I've ever done. One of the coolest. It's just really, and I really didn't know that, when I saw Algol, I told Kim, oh, it's his neck. And she said, whoa, well, they think that he slit his throat. And then it was in his obituary. So it's just, and it would take somebody kind of whacked out to do that, I would think. It would take somebody really whacked out. Yes, they're very close to each other. Oh, in DC, I think this place would just be the highlight of your trip. You know, go see Washington and I guess Thomas Jefferson, and all that good stuff. But I would put Belle Grove on my bucket list for sure. Do all of them. Who else could I do? I was gonna try to dig in, because honestly, you guys, there are very good records of enslaved people that were in this country. There are excellent records where they've got their birth and death information. And I was going to try to look up the 31-year-old. The 31-year-old that claims that, because if you want to, and what's funny about this, look at this little tidbit. Look at this. Do you guys find this odd? In 1850, it's got an 18-year-old female, right? The 1860s, the female is, I imagine it's the same one, is now 31, right? These are very young children. Now, these are young children. Were these her children? Because if you all recall, enslaved people or slaved people were used on the farm and to do manual labor. This was an agricultural plantation for farming. Look at the ages of the children. Were those his children? It's interesting, isn't it? I don't know. My mind was just going 100 miles an hour because I thought, there is an African-American woman that is seen around the property, and she's always wearing a yellow dress, according to the ghost hunters. Is this her? And can we find her? So, did he have her when she was 18 and then at 31 in 1860? And this was 1868. But we have to remember the Civil War ended in 65. So she would have been free. Did she leave? So, no, all the historical sites when in the area. Absolutely. I'll do all of the historical sites. Absolutely. It's 35 to 45 minutes out of DC. Okay, now, yes, there she is. She's been seen multiple times at the church, also at the front. But Howie, I wonder if this is her, and if somebody goes on an investigation, possibly, we could have them ask her, were you in the Turner era? The Turner family owned Belle Grove during this time frame. But I think it's odd that he has the following slaves, but they're children. And why would he be considered the owner of the slaves when he was the overseer of them? They would have belonged to Turner, who was the the grand poobah of the plantation. So why does he only own one female at 18, and then 10 years later she's, give or take a couple of years, but now she's got children? I don't know. It just struck me as being funny that there were some pretty good clues there. You know me, I'm going to jump down every rabbit hole I can because I found that very odd. he wouldn't have owned any slaves because he worked for the Turners. He was the overseer, which you think you see of the front of Belle Grove is actually the rear. The front of Belle Grove is pointed at the river. Just beautiful. Reach out to FPRI of this. They are Home Paranormal's team of Belle Grove. Oh, I will. What's FPRI though? This is true, but many of the plantations had what they call an upper slave or indigent servant who actually was in control of the plantation of the slaves. Now, everything, exactly. That's true. That's true. Absolutely. And that may be in the records, Howie, because they kept very, very good records. And that would be something that possibly the people there have in their records. Could be. And they also say when they are gifted and who gifted them. Maybe the plantation owner gave him ownership of her. It may be that there might be a sales. They have complete slave. They have all kinds of ownership records. Everything. I just found it funny because it's in his chart that it was a love affair. Fredericksburg Paranormal Research Investigation. I'll email it to them. I'll send it to them, and that would be great, Howie. Thank you. I'll email them the information and see if they cannot reach out to where they see her, the African American girl who's in her yellow dress at the church, and try to make contact with her. And I find it funny that Baldwin Lee continues to show himself and is mean and nasty, and then she is seen a lot too. Wonder if they were in the same era. I just found that so fascinating. So it just kind of shows you that, and how he said, very possible, Linda. Yeah. And Linda does all that digging too on the ancestry as well. But they've got wonderful, wonderful, just fantastic records, you know. But it's just a beautiful place. So according to what Howie was saying, this is the back of the house. And the front of the house faces the river. So that's what is super interesting, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought, a little bit of a mystery with history because we came out of our Pluto return in the U.S. and we've got really rich history here that I think I'm thrilled that it's being preserved in that area, and it just needs to be recorded and preserved for generations to come. It's just beautiful. I'd love to go. It's on my bucket list. Does anybody have any other info they'd like to share or chat about in the chat? Well, happy birthday tomorrow, Miss Tammy. Happy birthday. Big 61. That's young. That's young. Happy Aquarius birthday. All these Aquarians. All the Aquarians. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. Lois, do you have anything to add to the area since you and Howie are in that area? And Howie, do you have anything else you want to add about Belle Grove or anything that you may have seen there yourself? If you've been on investigations there, Howie, what you've encountered, it's just lovely. I think it's really got a great vibe. Don't you guys? I think it's got a wonderful vibe, even with Mean Baldwin. I think he's okay. I think he's okay. Mean Baldwin. I do too. I do too. I love history too. And Tammy, Denise says happy birthday. Howie says happy birthday. Everybody's saying happy birthday to you, Miss Tammy. Thanks, Denise. I'm going to add a little bit more to the history. One of the oldest existing towns is right across the river. It's a location called Port Royal. Port Royal. Another interesting little bit of information that I found out is this has to do with that John Wilkes Booth was in this area after he shot President Lincoln as well. He was in this area. Howie, now the interesting part about this, there was actually pirate activity by the name Port Royal, but pirate activity up and down the Rappahannock River. In fact, they captured one pirate that was a French pirate on the Rappahannock River. Oh, the pirate was Pirate Lafayette. Pirate Lafayette. I wonder if he shows up at Belle Grove. Pirate Lafayette. Like Johnny Depp. Like Johnny Depp. Oh. Lois says, yes, he died up the road from the plantation. Oh, Lord. So you see Johnny Depp. I thought it was super interesting. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's a little bit different than what we usually do with true crime, but it's a mystery nonetheless. And I thought it's fascinating. It's fascinating that we can go back this far into astrology and kind of help, look up stories and put the little pieces together. I think it's just so interesting. So interesting. Howie said, I did a little bit of investigations, had interesting stuff that happened. Yes, when the Rift was supporting Belle Grove in 2022. We had a couple of times where we were out doing special events and had some interesting stuff. Wait a minute, let's see. Okay. There was one time I was out there and we started on the investigation after the fact of the event, and we had some really interesting things happen to the men folk and the women folk. They separated us. Interesting. That is interesting. It was cool because you had a visit. Yeah, it's really neat. Well, you guys, thank you guys for tuning in. I love doing this and having these kind of presentations. And thank you guys for tuning in and your time and your thoughts. And please, Tammy, keep us updated on Lee. And I'll shoot a text. I don't want to bother her if she's at the hospital. But you guys, thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much, Howie, for your historic insight. That's wonderful on Belle Grove. Thank you so much for adding so much to our exciting little story. I think it's fascinating. Everybody stay warm this week. And I hope no more snow for all of us. I promise I'm not going to say any more snow down south to you guys. I'm sorry, Michelle. I'm sorry. But listen, everybody, have a safe week. Have a great week. And I'll see you guys next week on another interesting Mysteries Beyond the Scenes. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.